All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Junto, episode 40, and I'm your host, Noah Sawyer. Sorry, just still figuring things out here. And all right, so yeah, I don't know. It's been interesting living in a new place finally and getting into new habits, and I kind of feel like for the first time in my life I have joined the world of the living in a certain way, because I always would stay up really late, and like I would always feel really good from like midnight to 4 a.m. and that's when I would like to be awake and think about things and write and read, take a walk. And now I've been going to mass every day, and I've been going early. I had been going more like 7:30 or 8, and now the new church I go to, it's more like 9. And it's been so weird to actually start my day. And for a long time, actually, I tried to do this in so many ways, because I structured my life throughout my 20s I structured my life such that I would not need to work a normal job. So I would live in really cheap environments, and I would work like gig type jobs where it was every few months or something I could do periodically. And so that prevented me from ever having like a boss who could fire me if I didn't wake up and go to work. And however, I have always been drawn toward a type of autodidactism where I really wanted to be working on things. I wanted to work, I just didn't want to have a job. Like I didn't want to do something stupid in order to survive. And there were no jobs available that didn't feel like they were just doing something stupid. And so I had this struggle for a long time where I would try to, eventually I conceptualized it even as being my own boss, or like defining a job for myself, which is this type of autodidact study thing. And, setting the responsibilities and the expectations and the schedule and everything, and trying to be my own boss, holding myself to that schedule. But ultimately, I'm just so susceptible to my laziness in the morning, and it's really hard to, I don't know, I just feel like a different person after midnight. This is what I would often feel. I would often feel, especially actually when I was depressed, when I had serious depression, I would feel like I came back to myself in the evening. And that was something that I would dread going to sleep. I would stay up extra late because I would be afraid of waking up and being suicidal again and feeling disconnected from my life and from my ability to do things. And anyway, so I just bring that up because I realize now that I kind of found that responsibility basically through Mass and through the Catholic relationship to God and wanting to participate in communion every day. So that has been a very healing experience for me, just to go to communion. But it's also been a very structurally interesting experience for me, where I am now, everything feels like it's falling into place in a way where I was like desperately trying to put everything in place for years and years. Now it feels like it's falling into place. And so that's been a few weeks, but now I'm actually living in a different environment where I'm more comfortable. And so now the other parts of the puzzle are just falling into place. And I feel, for example, I went to a library today and wrote some notes for a stream. And often for these streams, I would not write the notes until right beforehand, if at all, because I'm also just a procrastinator and have been for a long time. And I don't know. Ultimately, I still did procrastinate because I wrote those notes, and then the plan was to revise them into more usable notes. Like I was basically rambling just about a particular subject that I had in my mind, which is kind of how I've titled the video, which is that you surrender yourself every day. But really the first line that I wrote on the notes was that transparency is at an all-time high. And so I'll elaborate on what I mean by that, but I'm still like getting back into the groove here. So I just want to read a passage just to warm up my voice, and and I don't know. This passage is always relevant. I've read it once or twice. And this is from Guy Debord in the Society, in the comments on the Society of the Spectacle from, I forget if it's 1989 or 1990, 1991. I don't really remember. But I'll just read this section here to get used to speaking on camera again. All right. According to the basic interests of the new system of domination, the dissolution of logic has been pursued by different but mutually supportive means. Some of these means involve the technology which the spectacle has tested and popularized. Others are more linked to the mass psychology of submission. At the technological level, when images chosen and constructed by someone else have everywhere become the individual's principal connection to the world he formerly observed for himself, it has certainly not been forgotten that these images can tolerate anything and everything, because within the same image, all things can be juxtaposed without contradiction. The flow of images carries everything before it, and it is similarly someone else who controls at will this simplified summary of the sensible world, who decides where the flow will lead as well as the rhythm of what should be shown, like some perpetual arbitrary surprise, leaving no time for reflection and entirely independent of what the spectator might understand or think of it. In this concrete experience of permanent submission lies the psychological origin of such general acceptance of what is, and acceptance of what comes to find in it ipso facto a sufficient value. Beyond what is strictly secret, spectacular discourse obviously silences anything it finds inconvenient. It isolates all it shows from its context, its past, its intentions, and its consequences. It is thus completely illogical. Since no one may contradict it, it has the right to contradict itself, to correct its own past. The arrogant intention of its servants, when they have to put forward some new and perhaps still more dishonest version of certain facts, is to harshly correct the ignorance and misinterpretations they attribute to their public, while the day before they themselves were busily disseminating the error with their habitual assurance. Thus, the spectacle's instruction and the spectator's ignorance are wrongly seen as antagonistic factors when in fact they give birth to each other. In the same way, the computer's binary language is an irresistible inducement to the continual and unreserved acceptance of what has been programmed according to the wishes of someone else, and passes for the timeless source of a superior, impartial, and total logic. Thus, it is hardly surprising that children should enthusiastically start their education at an early age with the absolute knowledge of computer literacy, while they are still unable to read, for reading demands making judgments at every line and is the only access to the wealth of pre-spectacular human experience. Conversation is almost dead, and soon so too will those... Conversation is almost dead, and soon so too will be those who knew how to speak. The primary cause of the decadence of contemporary thought evidently lies in the fact that spectacular discourse leaves no room for any reply, while logic was only socially constructed through dialogue. Furthermore, when respect for those who speak through the spectacle is so widespread, when they are held to be rich, important, prestigious, to be authority itself, the spectators tend to want to be just as illogical as the spectacle, thereby proudly displaying an individual reflection of this authority. And finally, logic is not easy, and no one has tried to teach it. Drug addicts do not study logic, they no longer need it, nor are they capable of it. And I would emphasize that with the cell phone now, I feel like people are addicted to a drug, which is the phone. Anyway, I'll elaborate later. The spectator's laziness is shared by all intellectual functionaries and overnight specialists, all of whom do their best to conceal the narrow limits of their knowledge by the dogmatic repetition of arguments with illogical authority. And I just always find that comforting to read because it was written so long ago, but it applies so directly to algorithmic smartphone content. and how the images flow, and especially that part about how people come to mimic it, or the spectators tend to want to be just as illogical as the spectacle. And you see that with a lot of influencers, but you see it just with ordinary people as our capacity to be healthy social organisms devolves, as we all live in these particular worlds that are heavily, heavily mediated by the algorithm that we specifically are looking at over the course of our lives. And I also love the part where he refers to, I changed the translation here because I think it says children start their education with computer science. I haven't looked at what he actually says in the original French, but I think it's obvious that he means they start with computer literacy, or at least maybe he was wrong and that's how it has panned out in our day, where children are learning this computer literacy before they really learn how to read. Anyway, like, and even when people do read, like I said, I went to the library today, and I went to just a small local library, and I was highly disturbed by how bad the books were. They were all, the way I was thinking of it as a bookseller was, I was like, I don't know that I would take like 1 in 1,000 of these for free. Like, that's how, or for $1 or for $2. Like, it was so much garbage. And I was sitting in a history section, like a history and politics section, and it was all just, I don't know. It was repulsive. It was all really pre-digested explanations of history and of contemporary politics for people. And I find that disturbing. And there was almost no primary source material in that section that I could find. So that was just kind of a dark experience. And also, it was a small library. And while I was in there, I could hear people coming in to get the books they were reserving and talking about the books, and like, oh yeah, that one's really popular. Oh yeah, I heard about it from my friends, mostly elderly people. And it was just so, I don't know. It was a dark time in the library. I think I will bring earplugs if I go back, because I don't really need to hear that. But anyway, I wrote this stuff there, so yeah. I feel a little, I think I need to move my monitor because this is not how it was set up in my previous studio, and now it's almost like I'm looking directly at myself because it's kind of under the camera, and it is very weird. So I might see if I can actually, oh nice, I can make it extremely small. So now it's just a very small version of me, and that's preferable. So hang on a second here. Okay, so now I can at least see if something goes wrong or what. Okay. Oh yeah, the other thing that I changed, a lot of people the people I've talked to about this did not realize it, but I was standing at the old studio, and now I'm sitting, and it feels way different, and I can't quite get used to it yet. So there's something about standing that just kind of changes the way that I'm projecting and the way that I don't know, just changes how I'm speaking, I guess. This is it's an adjustable desk, so I could always adjust it, but I don't know that it would look good in this room because the ceiling is a lot lower than the last ceiling was. So I don't know. So everything's just a little off, and that's fine. So I'll just get into what I wanted to talk about today. So I called this video every day you surrender your life, because I'm thinking about how much more we can do to save ourselves from the level of mental atrophy that we are condemning ourselves to. And I consider it a type of surrender, a type of acquiescence, a type of giving up control of how you feel and what your mental capabilities are to an external force. And that external force is the whole power apparatus of the world, but really specifically, it's this influence network that functions electronically via the internet and through our phones and our computers and the media that we consume, and then that our social network consumes and then communicates back to us, and we start mimicking each other. This whole network of influence, whether it be from the screen or just learned from other people. For example, a kid who goes to school, you might not give your kid access to the internet, but if your kid goes to school and is around a bunch of other kids who have access to the internet, they might just be repeating all these jokes that they don't even understand. It's just sort of random jokes. And then your kid will also find them funny. It will mimic the behavior, and then it will bring that behavior home and to wherever else it goes. So I'm just thinking about that prospect of further and further becoming nothing or losing yourself. And one way I think of it is as a lobotomy, but not a quick and clean lobotomy, just a lobotomy that is slow and gradual. It's as if I mean, I don't want to be grotesque or anything. I haven't thought of it this way, but it is sort of like the needle is all in our heads, and it's just like, it's up to you how much like poison you inject into your brain to melt part of your brain. Sorry, it's kind of gross, but the needle being in our head is just the fact that we are in this thing. And so we're all checking our phone, we're all using our phone. It's not good. We're all addicted to it. And like, I don't know, you could show up in the comments and say you're not addicted to it, but it's really something you can't escape from no matter what. Like, we have lost any semblance of a social culture to perpetuate into the future that is not corrupted by this. It is like, we need to start over in a certain sense. We need to evaluate what has gone wrong with our relationship to the technological problem in general, but especially to algorithmic scrolling based content on smartphones. We need to assess what has gone wrong here and move forward deliberately from here. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of what my notes are about today. That's what I want to talk about today, because I think we all have a lot of power to stop, and yet none of us are stopping. A lot of us are just perpetuating it. And like I said yesterday, I'm witnessing friends who, as the months go on, as we go further and further into this 21st century, people are losing it, and it's sad, and it is disturbing, and it is avoidable is the main thing, but it's uncomfortable to do what you have to do to avoid it. Not even for yourself, but for your friends and family. If you see someone who has a problem, it's not easy you don't know how to help them with that necessarily. And it's an awkward conversation to bring up because it's become so normalized. The normalization of this it's making it sort of impossible to talk about, and people are talking about it. You see more and more people, you see schools banning phones, you see people addressing that something is wrong, but there are other key norms that tessellate with this that are not being broken. Like, I feel like people are not understanding how deep the iceberg really goes. And yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about, well, here's another part of it. It's like the old guard, so to speak, like people 50 plus, whatever, like they're going to die in our lifetimes if we live long enough to see that. And I don't say that in a joyful way. I just say that in a matter of fact way. We're all going to die ultimately. But you have to think about who those people were when they were our age, or when they were even younger, when they were kids. How do people wind up like that? Because you look at the boomers and Gen X and everything, and they had a lot more opportunity than we had. There was a much more, there was a lot more economic opportunity. There was a lot more opportunity to create a life. You could start a family on one income or on two incomes. Now it's hard to start a family even on two incomes. It's hard to own a house. And so you've got these people who were, you know, the hippie generation, not saying all of them were hippies, but that was the era. And now they've turned into, and like, I love a lot of boomers. I love a lot of old people, but they are so maladjusted to being human beings that it is hard to watch. You look at the way that people have evolved into their sexual role, say, and, you know, I mean, like as a man or as a woman, and the way that they have come to understand the family over time, and the way that they have come to understand what they want to do in their old age. I am always, like, this was other stuff I was overhearing at the library today, but I'm always perplexed when I hear people talking about, or when I hear older people talking about all the vacations they go on, or like, oh, I love Malta, oh, I love Morocco. And it's just so, it feels so alienated. It feels so disconnected from really living. And I'm not painting them all that way, but there's a cultural problem. You can infer a lot of things about the surviving sector of that generation and their cultural norms. And anyway, so I bring it up because, like, we are aging. If we live long enough, we are going to be that age. And I try to think about, what is this generation going to be like at that age? And I try not to infer too much. I try not to really make predictions, because so much is going to change in the next 30 years that I'm not in the business of making predictions. So really, I just try to use that as a frame with which to think about my own life right now and my own peers right now, and how we really have to change what we are doing. And I'm not trying to reduce it all to media addiction or anything, but you think about the boomers and they're TV pilled. Like, they believe the news. There's a I don't know. I was around a relative recently, and they were watching Fox News, and they were talking about aliens on Fox News. And also, really bizarrely, you know, not to go on a tangent, but I know this is the case. I wasn't in the room, so maybe it was for a commercial before Fox News, but they played an Ariel Pink song from, I think the album's called Before Today. I don't know. But just like 4, maybe 5 seconds of an Ariel Pink song, and I was like, that's so weird. That's the like, you know, stinger to come back to the interview or whatever it was. Anyway, but you know, there's just so many people who believe the news, and they don't even understand. This is the thing about the boomers for me, the news trusters for me, and this goes for Gen X as well. It goes for all parents. I mean, millennials have their own version of this now that they're parents, but like, they can't. Whenever I hear almost anyone, but especially, I mean, almost any parent talk about global news, I'm just like, you don't even know what happened in your own house, like, at all. Psychologically, socially, you don't even know what your kid is like. You live in a fantasy land, and you're telling me about Iran or Hungary. Like, that one always gets me. But anyway, so I'll get back to it here. Basically, yeah. I guess there's not really an order here, but I'm just thinking a lot about, okay, so yeah, our place as the younger generation here, which is eventually going to be very old, and taking the reins of whatever materially is left of the world, and however it is socially distributed amongst the governing bodies of the world. Who knows what it will be like, really? But it's like, if we are all if we are all rotting our brains, literally, just literally rotting our brains. Brain rot is real. It is pruning your brain. Your brain is the plasticity, the plastic quality of your brain is evolving when you doom scroll to just, it's like, oh well, this is what I do to survive. This is pleasurable. I get my food. I know where the food comes from. It comes from the store. I know I just have to go to work to get the money, and I get to just scroll on this thing that gives me pleasure, and I can hit my vape, and I can do all this stuff at work, and then I'll get the money to go to the grocery store, and and I either watch porn and jerk off, or I have a casual relationship or two that I'm having sex like regularly within. And so you are a biological organism ultimately. I think you're also a spiritual organism, also a psychological organism, but you have to be careful with the fact that you're a biological organism, because that's how your brain gets rotted. Your biology adapts to, okay, well, I guess this is how I survive now. I don't need all this extra stuff in my brain. So that's the real danger of it. And so just get off your phone, but get off of like everything. There's everything normal about the way people are living their lives right now is insanely destructive to the whole planet, to the whole world, to the whole human progeny, human descendants of the future. It is insane. Like, you can't roll with this and expect things to be all right by the time we're 50. Like, do you want also, and that's kind of another way to think about it. It's like, okay, well, who is grinding right now? Like, who is seated, who is poised to take power in the future? And I don't mean one person. I just mean like various members of the society. It's like, who is poised? Are they rotting their brain? Some of them surely are, because a lot of this is just a social game. A lot of it is, where were you born? Where'd you go to school? How much money do you have? Who do you know? But a lot of it still depends upon merit and skill, and how you spend these years of your life, how you spend these days of your life. Like, if you are under 35 even, there's just this applies to everybody. No one should be hurting themselves. I think that phone use hurts us. I think it hurts our relationships. I think it hurts our understanding of other people. This is a more specific example, but pornography, I'm extremely in favor of banning pornography. I don't think it should be legal. I don't think that's a freedom of expression argument thing. I don't think there's any ground to stand on there. I think, the courts were wrong, as they can be and often are. So I think that if you are in a healthy relationship and you watch pornography, your relationship suffers because of that, because that changes the imagery that lives within you at deep levels, whether they are conscious or not. Those images stay within you and affect your relationship to sexual activity. And one example of this is just, I don't want to go on a crazy tangent right now, but I could, about the concept of like fetishes or kink, where I think the term fetish is apt here, where it's like it's almost like the Platonic ideal thing, where it's like, okay, you have all these dogs in the world, but you have the Platonic ideal of a dog, which has all these ideal qualities in this other realm of existence. I'm not a Platonist. I don't really know what they're going on about in there, but just as a concept, I feel like that if you watch pornography at all, and even if you've quit, or even if you just were exposed to it at a younger age, there are things about those images that you see there that affected your libido, that imprint in a way that when you are in a sexual situation with a loved one in the future, there is still that sort of transcendent fetish concept beyond that's living within you somewhere, where you start, it's a type of objectification essentially, where you are getting away from the concrete reality of you and that person. You get away from just loving this singular person with all of their particular qualities in front of you, and instead you have this dissociated libidinal experience. And I'm not saying it's total, but I'm saying it is necessarily occurring at the same time. So anyway, just sort of a sex tangent, but anyway. Hello to Laxus in the chat. I don't know who you are, but hello. All right, so yeah, I'll get back to the first line that I wrote on this piece of paper earlier. One second. Yeah, so just this concept of transparency, where it's sort of just a, like, if you seek, you will find situation in our world right now, where because we are in this internet connected world, because we have access to the internet and all things archived on the internet, and have this instant communication with all kinds of people all around the world who all have different experiences and different knowledge that they've acquired, we are just in a very special situation where we are able to liberate ourselves from a lot of these issues, but it requires leaning on each other, and it requires leaning on historical cultural artifacts as well, such as that Guy Debord passage that I read earlier. It is, people in history, people have understood how to be people. People haven't always been as confused as, say, teenagers and 20-year-old Americans now feel. Like, there was a serious severance of tradition within our culture. And I don't use that term to hearken to anything too, like, abstract, really. I just mean, or singular. It's just, like, I'm talking about the concept of tradition culturally as anything that preserves awareness as time goes on for the future generations. There's there are precedents that can be set, and you can create new traditions that can be good or bad in different ways. But in our situation, we have been severed from understanding our place in the world in a very deep way. And a lot of this has to do with how rapidly technology is accelerating and has been accelerating, and how it's just a multi-generational problem. And sorry, I'm kind of losing steam here. Because I've got to get back in the groove. I didn't do my vocal warm-ups, and I was kind of saying to myself, like, is it really going to matter? Like, am I going to feel it? And I totally feel it. Like, I'm feeling it in a way that was unexpected, which is that it feels kind of like my throat is not tender, basically. And that is a weird feeling. So it feels kind of like, I don't know, unfamiliar. So now I just feel kind of uncanny as I'm trying to speak normally. So let me just go and I'll take a quick look at this stuff, and I'll see if there's anything I want to share, but yeah, I'm probably just going to read a few quotes from this and then end it, because I just feel kind of off. But So the path I was kind of tracking here is I'm thinking about this concept of transparency being at an all-time high and how we can learn what is going on and we can do it with friends and we can start making sense of the world. And part of this was prompted by looking around at the library and seeing how stuffed with political propaganda about history it was. Like thousands of books. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of books for sure, just in the history and politics section. And a lot of what it was covering was the founding of the country and contemporary politics. A little bit of, like, maybe a little bit of Civil War stuff too, and then World War stuff. And you think about it and it's like, okay, well, you know, people obviously need the current events to be skewed for them. Speaking as a, you know, putting myself in the shoes of a democracy which relies on propaganda in order to facilitate its particular way of structuring and to ensure that it continues to operate. And so, yeah, and then there were a lot of other books. The other primary topic was the founding of the country and the Revolutionary War. And that is essential, or you think about that from the propagandist perspective, and it's like, well, if you corrupt the very founding of the nation, the starting point of the nation, in terms of your understanding of it, in terms of the mass understanding of it and the way that it can then, you know, you create a new tradition and that is taught to the children, it's taught to their children, that sets you up pretty good. And then you have these major events, these wars, especially World War II, which is just the most major earth-shattering war that we've had that still sits with us in a way. And all of these are moments in history that it's very important to create and sustain a narrative around. And that's what I see when I'm in that section of the library. However, we are now with the internet able to learn, we can read the primary sources about all of these events. We can read from people who were involved in these events. And I think that that is really important to start doing. I don't think everyone has to read everything, but just to be in a group of friends where you're sharing some of that information. And I hope to have some of my friends on in the future to talk about that stuff and just like do some calls and chat about their particular thing that they've been researching. So anyway, I was then kind of thinking about this response that you hear sometimes where people like to be like, okay, well, people have always been fucked up, or America's always been fucked up or destructive or a horrible country. And I was thinking just about the nature of that response. And I'm like, what is the end of that response? Like, what's it trying to get at? What's it implying that I should think based on that response? Like, where are you going with that, basically? And yeah, I was just kind of saying, like, are you arguing just to argue? Is it for pride? Is it for entertainment? Or are you trying to do your part? Are you saying just you haven't considered this? And so I was like, well, what's a good criterion for understanding? What's a good criterion to put those sorts of questions up against? Those sorts of things where it's like when someone just offers that, you know, stupid little thing where it's like, okay, well, people have always been like that. Like that's essentially never going to be constructive because that's just not true. Like, you can generalize in certain ways about the human condition, but every person is different. Every period of history is different. And we're trying to solve a problem. We're trying to solve the cultural situation that we're in. We're trying to live better in a way that lasts. And so, you know, it's just like, that's an abstraction that takes you away from the task at hand. And so the criterion I came up with just off the top of my head is to ground the takeaways in concrete, practical, strategic actions. So thinking about concrete actions, It's not solely a matter of theory or of concepts. It's not solely a thought action or an opinion change, which I think that's where a lot of people live in this stuff. It's just like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. You changed my opinion. Or maybe you'll change my opinion later. And it's like, dude, I don't care if I change your opinion at all, if it doesn't result in changing your life. So anyway, and then the practical sense, it's a proposal that you can actually do. It's not fanciful and you will do it. It's, there's lots of things that we in theory can do, but are we going to do it? I think we should try to keep things pretty practical. And then when I say strategic, I'm thinking of it as, you're looking towards something specific in the future that you're trying to get at. But the more important part is like, okay, well, if I do this action, or if I make this change, or if I think about this way going forward, is it bringing me more or less irreversibly closer to the strategic end that I have in mind? And I think that might be helpful as a criterion. So, yeah, and then I was thinking, I put my show up against the criterion, and I'm like, well, I think it's practical because I'm able to do it, and so far it just kind of has this aim of making sense and of reaching unique people in the world, and I'm definitely doing that, even if it's a small number of people, and that's fine with me. So, and then on the other side, there's this sense making, and once I really settle into this new place where I'm living, I want to turn a lot of these ideas into writing so that they can be just so clearly expressed and clearly shared and distributed easily too, if you want to share them in person with people. So I think I think my goals with the show are practical, and I think it's concrete in that it is accomplishing so far actually talking to people. There are concrete people who had never heard of me and I'd never heard of them, and we've talked to each other now, and people have reached out to me and said that I've helped them or changed their perspective on something, or people have, done the reverse to me. They've paid me, which has been helpful, and I've sent them books. Like there's concrete things changing in the world. Like someone has a book and a card that I wrote for them, various people do, and they will remember where the book came from, most likely, or where the card came from. And who knows where, like, my perspective as a bookseller is always that ephemera, that little piece of paper that I typed on and put my name on the verso of, on the reverse side, that lives on in the world, and who knows where it's going to show up in the future. So yeah. And then as far as it being strategic, there are multiple senses in which I think of the show, and one of them is just personally, like I have this personal strategy of wanting to become a more articulate speaker and make clearer and clearer sense of my situation in the world, and become a more adaptable person as the future becomes less and less predictable. And I feel like I'm accomplishing that because at the end of the day, like sometimes it's hard to do this show, especially, I mean, now I'm out of the rhythm, but even when I was in the rhythm, sometimes it's hard to, get up and press live, go live. And that, hang on. However, every time I do it, I'm putting myself to the test in a certain way, and I'm creating something that lives on as an artifact on the internet or on my computer. I mean, all of these are still public, but you never know if they'll get wiped off the internet. And they live on in my conversations with my friends. Then when I hang out with my friends, we'll talk about something I talked about on the show if they watched it, and we can further develop these ideas. So it's certainly accomplishing this personal strategic element for me. And then thinking of it as, well, it also just opens doors for me, which is nice. Or it just by being in this venue, other people sharing their ideas with me. Marshall, if you're watching this, I think his name is Marshall. Someone's been commenting on a lot of my videos, and I do want to respond to him eventually. I just haven't had this computer set up till a couple days ago. And honestly, I kind of am thinking about doing a stream where I respond to a lot of the comments, because some of them are, well, specifically from Marshall, because some of them are quite long, and some of them touch on topics that I think are really worth digging into, because they're sort of topics I'd like to put to bed if possible. Things like I don't know, the ever presence of technology and situating smartphones and smartphone addiction within the ever present relationship between man and technics. I think the direction of time has implications that it seems like Marshall doesn't think it has for those. So that's something I'd like to talk about. Maybe we could do a phone call or something, but anyway, yeah, but then on the other side, there's this strategic sense of like, I want to help other people, whether they're people I know or don't know. Like, I don't really care. I see it is, it's like so hard to be American at this point. It's so hard to like go outside as an American almost anywhere in America, anywhere that is developed at all by human beings, because it is just so depressing, and you just see so many sad people, and you see it's crazy, and you see, like, I feel so bad for children growing up in this era. The ones that I see, it's just like, so it's just miserable because the parents are miserable. There's a huge obesity problem as well. We live in hell, basically. America is like it has become a total disaster that is really hurting people and hurting the whole world. And like, I'm not anti-American. I just think it's a nightmare. I think it is literally it's hard to look at. It's kind of hard to stomach. Like, going in the grocery store, going in Walmart, going anywhere, going on the highway, going on a suburban road, going on a bike path, like going on a mountain. You can't get away from it. It's a nightmare. So that's been sticking with me. And that's something that strategically I feel like is a success, because even just with the small testimonies I've received from a handful of people, like, we all have a lot of power to help the other people in our lives. Most people just can't articulate what's wrong or what's going on, and you just adapt. So I'll wrap up with something I know I put at the bottom here, which is talking about yeah, so just that this culture has atomized us, desensitized us, and alienated us. And I will elaborate a little bit on those three things. The atomization is the separating us from each other. And you can even think of it fits perfectly. The nuclear family was a step in deeper and deeper levels of atomization. Like, that was a major cultural traditional step. And traditions evolve very fast in this period of history, so it didn't really last very long, but that was a step towards separating the family from the wider community, separating the family from the other elements of the family. And now people are extremely atomized. People are really separated from each other, even if they're very connected through text. There's a lacking deeper connection, deeper understood connection or spiritual connection between people. And there's also a desensitization that has happened to all of us, where we're desensitized to life itself. We are, like, your senses are always in a state of flux. You can be extra sensitive to sound in one moment, or you can get used to that sound once, the air conditioner kicks on and you're aware of it, but then once it's on for 5 minutes, you don't even notice it. Think of that at the macro scale for your life and engaging in the world, and spending so much time looking at a phone that's right in front of your face that is showing you highly stimulating information. You just become numb in a certain way to that which is out there, and that which is in here. You become numb to your senses, bodily senses, social senses. A lot of people over identify with autism, I think, because there's like a cultural autism that is developed through our inability to sense things about other people and social interactions. And that's also, I don't know, it also desensitizes you from your ability to sense purpose existentially in the world or religiously in the world. And anyway, and then this concept of, oh, well, maybe that's kind of what I was getting at with alienation, where we are alienated from the real ends of the things that we do and why we do them and why we are here. It has become alien to us. We go to work, we don't even know all the workings or all of the, logistical inputs and outputs of our workplace. We are just a cog in that machine. And that, again, at the macro scale, at the universal scale, people just don't understand why they are alive at the existential level. And I'm Catholic personally. I believe that we're here out of a sense of love from God, who created the universe and is existence. And we are desensitized to that love. That is something that I feel like I've learned through my religious experiences over the course of this year. I think I've become increasingly aware of what that love really means and how it functions and why it necessitated the creation of the world and the creation of people in the way that it did. So anyway, yeah, so when you're all detached in in that variety of ways, we're just floating around in this cultural sewer, this ocean-sized sewer, and it's being like stirred and controlled by those people who actually have power, who have actually wound up in positions of power as history has played out. So I just think we have to not surrender to that situation and instead look within and cut ourselves off from all of these things that want to hurt us and want to wound us and want to keep us impotent and continue to expropriate power from us and expropriate the world from us. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of, that's what I got. I think I'll be back tomorrow. I might just start doing it more or less every day of the week. And yeah, let me know what you think of the new set. Is it too dark? I added an extra light kind of far away because this section looked really dark at various points in the other episode. Let me know what you think. And thank you to Jam Bingo in the chat. I'm glad that you have been checking out the streams. I really appreciate it. And yeah, so like the video, subscribe, send it to your friends if you can. And let me know, leave a comment. Let me know what you want to talk about in here, because everyone is going through this at various levels. And I don't know, I'm excited for the show. I think it's going to ramp up, and I think there's just so much to talk about in this amazing world that we live in. So yeah, all right, good night. I'll probably see you tomorrow. I think why not? I'm going to try to do like slightly shorter shows more frequently. So we'll see how it goes. Have a good night, everybody. See you later.